Jim.
What brings you to America?
Well, I was invited actually by Midwest Model UN to deliver their keynote address. That will take place later on today. We also have a number of interviews lined up. This is actually my first visit to St. Louis. I'm really excited and looking forward to having great
Well,
conversations with some of the
you got to
community
come
leaders.
back in the summer so you can go to a Cardinals game. St. Louis is a
Okay.
fine town, but it's really alive when the Cardinals play.
All right. Sounds good. So look forward to that as well.
So, if you could, Jim has given me a little background on what all you've been working on. But give me the rundown of when you come and speak to the Model UN. What is the message? I've seen so many. I guess because of pop culture, I did not realize until recently all the things that the Saudi Arabian government invests in, not just to promote Saudi Arabia, but just to make money to provide, I guess, give dividends back to the folks. What is your main message of the vision for Saudi Arabia's cooperation with United Nations, but really specifically for America?
Right. So, specifically in speaking to the UN conference, to the Model UN conference, I mean, as it happens to be, I'm the official spokesperson at the Saudi embassy in DC, but I interned at the United Nations many years ago as a graduate student while I was living in New York. And I also actually received my high school diploma from the United Nations International School. So I have a little bit of background there. And I thought, between that and between my work at the embassy, that hopefully I'll have something interesting to share with the students about the nature of international affairs, the nature of diplomacy, the importance of the United Nations as well. And also, I will have a chance to speak about the important role that Saudi Arabia plays globally on multiple fronts.
So I was going to ask you this a little bit later, but there's a friend of both Jim and mine, John Combest, who
Mm.
would be very disappointed in me if I didn't ask.
Okay.
There was some rumors come out, I'm embarrassed. I learned about obviously I knew that Saudi Arabia was a major global investor, and I learned a lot about it from your op-ed. Learned a lot about it from Jim. Before I get to that, my real question, tell me about the op-ed you wrote. What led you to pin that, and what give me the let's say somebody didn't get to read your op-ed or they want to go back now and take a look at it. Give me the high points and the top things, some what you take away from it.
Right. So I mean, whether we're in DC or whether we travel outside of Washington, DC, the way I am today, I mean, our main message is that we're always keen on reminding people about the importance of the relationship with the United States. It's a long-standing relationship that goes back 80 years. It's a relationship that has not only endured, but it has continued to strengthen and to deepen under both Republican and Democratic administrations. In many ways, it's a multidimensional relationship. It includes political cooperation. It includes military cooperation. So, for instance, our military forces have not only fought wars side by side on a couple of occasions, but they also conduct military exercises on a regular basis. There's also significant trade between Saudi Arabia and the United States. So this is a mutually beneficial relationship. It's not only been good for Saudi Arabia, we think it's been good for the United States, but it's also been good for the broader international community.
So I got the question I was building to. My knowledge of the Saudi Arabian trust and the investments that you've made actually peaked when I saw that some folks speculated you were going to buy the WWF or WWE. Uh, is there any news you would care to break right here, or just give me a wink and nod that I can tell Combest and Jason Rosenbaum about the potential for Saudi Arabia buying Vince McMahon's company?
Right. So what I can tell you is that Saudi Arabia is undergoing a very exciting transformation called Vision 2030, and the vision basically is a series of social and economic reforms that has several objectives. One is to diversify the economy. The other is to basically empower the various segments of Saudi society and also to enable various sectors of the Saudi economy. Sports, as it happens, is one of these areas that we have invested a lot of resources in. One, for really multiple reasons. As far as we're concerned, our promotion, our investment of sports is a win-win for the kingdom. One, it obviously it helps us diversify our economy. It has generated thousands of jobs. It has also improved the quality of life for both Saudis as well as residents in the kingdom alike. And if that's not enough, we now have hundreds of Saudi athletes playing sports they've never played before, including many Saudi female athletes. So, this is a good thing for us on multiple fronts.
So break that down for me. Um, it, there's no secret. There's been folks that have that question the differences in Western culture and the culture in Saudi Arabia. What would you say to somebody who, you got a lot of grandstanders and you got a lot of folks that seek attention on social media, but if someone was working with Saudi Arabia and you were investing in their company and you were providing jobs and growth, but they were concerned about some of the ways, say, women are treated in Saudi Arabia. How do you answer someone who's got not a grandstand gotcha, but truly has an honest concern? What do you say to somebody to make them understand and feel a little bit better about it?
Well, thank you. I mean, that's a great question. And frankly, this is why we travel, and that's why we engage with a broad spectrum of American audiences. So we believe that we actually do have a lot of shared interest with the United States that has maintained the relationship going back 80 years. Again, we both work very closely on political issues to resolve some of the crises in the region and beyond. But we also, I think that we do have some shared values as well. So, one of the things that the United States and Saudi Arabia promote is also free and fair trade. So, one of the things that we're doing with Vision 2030 is we have streamlined doing business in Saudi Arabia. So, it's a lot easier now to invest in Saudi Arabia. It's a lot easier to open a business than it was years ago. We are seeking to recruit talented people, young people, but also seasoned professionals. I think people realize, certainly Americans and others, that there's a great opportunity. And what's happening in Saudi Arabia, maybe in many ways, is unique in the world because we are changing on multiple levels. We believe that we are changing for the better. We are broadening, diversifying our economy. We're, like I said, empowering every segment of society. We are investing in sectors that have not been developed to their full potential over the past few decades, really, because of the fact that we have focused a little bit too much on our energy sector. But now we're diversifying beyond that. So we continue to produce energy, but we're also investing a lot at this point. We also have realized that Saudi Arabia geographically is strategically located. So we are turning the kingdom into a global logistical hub. We believe that we are also, we are the center of the Arab world to a great extent. We are the center of the Muslim world. We are very bullish on technology and science. We are investing a lot. We have a lot of interesting, innovative projects underway in Saudi Arabia. And it's become very clear to me that the business community here in the United States is very much not only interested in learning, but there's a lot of American businesses that have been working in Saudi Arabia for many, many years. Some of them have been there for literally 100 years, like Bechtel. But so we're looking to not only maintain that relationship, but also to broaden with new American companies that are at the forefront of some of the technologies that kind of dominate today's global economy.
When you discussed shared interest and values, I've read where you've helped with Russia's war on Ukraine, with helping with some prisoner swaps. Can you tell me what the extent the kingdom has been involved in assisting the Ukrainians during their invasion?
Right. So Saudi Arabia maintains good or excellent relations with the overwhelming majority of countries around the region. We also maintain that does include both Ukraine and Russia. Because of that, we have actually been able to maintain an open channel of communication with both leaders. We have offered to mediate between the two countries. And like you said correctly, we did mediate in the release of some prisoners. We're hoping that these conversations can provide a little bit of trust between the two parties and maybe lead to broader agreements. Obviously, we are not there yet, but this is something that Saudi Arabia does whenever the opportunity presents itself. And again, it's due to the fact that we maintain good relationships with countries around the world. And we've actually even provided Ukraine with $400 million in assistance, as well as we've assisted with some of the Ukrainian refugees in Europe as well.
Is that kind of a tricky path to walk? being friends with one country that's invading another country, and being friends with I guess, the invader and the invadee.
Well, we are strong believers in the art of diplomacy. We have succeeded over the years. I think that we have a pretty good legacy of mediating or playing a constructive role in bringing long simmering conflicts to an end. So, for one, this record goes back to 1990 when Saudi Arabia played a pretty central role in ending what was then a 15-year civil war in Lebanon. In fact, the agreement that brought that war to an end is called the Taif Agreement, and it was signed and named after a city called Taif in Saudi Arabia. More recently, we played an important role in bringing peace between Eritrea and Ethiopia. Again, there had been a conflict there for many years. And so, what we're doing with Ukraine and Russia is kind of an extension of these policies. We hope that, again, we hope that our efforts will bear fruit. But obviously, we're very mindful of the destructive effect that this war has had, not just on Ukraine, on Europe, but also on the global economy. So we will continue to do whatever we can to hopefully bring it to a political resolution soon.
What do you think the chances are of that?
It's hard to tell, to be honest. Obviously, it's obviously still raging, and like I said, it's had a negative impact not just on Ukraine and on the heart of Europe, but it's had an adverse impact on global energy markets, on global food markets, and so the sooner it comes to an end, the better. We're doing everything we can, but this is something that might take a little bit of time, but it will not be resolved without promoting dialogue and constructive dialogue. That's really what Saudi Arabia firmly believes in.
So I saw where Saudi Arabia did pretty well in the World Cup this last year, which is in pretty close to your backyard. The World Cup's coming to Kansas City. We're pretty excited about the economic boost that that's going to bring. Do you have any observation or advice you could give to folks in Missouri about, one, hosting it? I personally, I'm a hillbilly, so I'm not much of a soccer fan. So for folks in Missouri that maybe not very acquainted with soccer, and just as far as the logistics and all the things that go into hosting it, can you talk a little bit about what your observation and any advice you'd have for folks in Missouri?
So I'm actually old enough to remember attending some World Cup soccer games when the United States hosted in 1994. I attended a couple of games in DC, a couple of games in New York, and the World Cup, for my money, is the most exciting sporting events in the world. Although I also love American football, I'm a huge New York Jets fan. I hope you won't hold that against me. But I'm
Not at
also a big
all.
I'm also a big fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. To be honest, I think you have once in a generation talent in Pat Mahomes. He's very exciting to watch. And like I said earlier, sports is one of these things that much like film and music, has universal appeal. It transcends borders, it transcends politics, and we're very excited. We are Saudi Arabia does not miss an opportunity to host global sporting events because we believe that, one, we have a chance to showcase our kingdom, our landmarks to the world, but it allows our Saudi people to see world-class athletes playing, sports at the highest level. So whether it's tennis, soccer, horse racing, car racing, you name it, wrestling included. I don't want to miss wrestling as well.
I started to
And
say
again,
you can't miss wrestling. I mean, you guys have like two big events there every year now. That I would say there's a lot of folks. It's like my son, right? He's 6. He's too young to know geopolitics or political history. However, he knows exactly where the greatest Royal Rumble is, and he knows. I mean, he watches the promotional footage in the middle of it. His only knowledge of Saudi Arabia, or probably the Middle East period, is from that. And I have a belief that there's no way that doesn't carry with him through life.
yeah, and again, at the risk of giving away my age, but I grew up watching WWF at that point. It
Yeah,
was
me
called, I
too.
believe. But we know Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior and Jimmy Snuka and people like that. So
Oh yeah.
professional wrestling has always had a big following in Saudi Arabia, but so have other sports. And again, The
You're going to
reason
get the biggest boost from this interview since you talked wrestling from my friend John Compass. He's like the largest political aggregator in the state, and
okay,
he's a old school wrestling fan. So what you just did bumped this interview many times, and I'm grateful for it. But
excellent.
specifically, all right, let's start from the beginning. Logistics. What advice would you give the folks in Kansas City? Because I mean, I don't think there's any way any of us can quite grasp the enormity of the World Cup and in the international stage. What is folks in Kansas City and the state of Missouri be thinking about logistically?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've had World Cup games played here before. Didn't back in '94 were some of the games played here?
I think we're in America. I don't know if anyone we're in Missouri.
Okay, so maybe in other states.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's a tremendous undertaking. Saudi Arabia, like I said, has hosted a number of international events. We've had the car rally, we've had Formula E, Formula F, wrestling you already mentioned. We have the Asian Games, Winter Games, interestingly enough, in 2030. So, I mean, these are great events. Again, it's a win-win because one, you showcase your people, your landmarks, your city, really to a global audience. And then the other thing is that, as I already said, every time you host a sporting event, you are improving the quality of life for the people there. I mean, it creates thousands of jobs. It
Yeah.
adds, potentially billions of dollars to your local economy. And then
But
it's just a
it's
fun
it's an
thing to
opportunity,
go to.
right? I mean,
Right,
it's an
absolutely.
opportunity that, like Rio de Janeiro hosted, I believe, the Olympics, and I'm not sure that it had a very positive effect on the city. I mean, it was an opportunity that I'm not sure was maybe is capitalized on as well as they'd like. Other cities, it's been a capstone event. Um, so I guess there are ways. I mean, because it wouldn't be such a big opportunity if it didn't have the potential to go poorly if you don't plan through it and plan well.
Right. I mean, these events obviously do require a lot of planning. That's why countries bid for them well in advance, often, I think, 10 years in advance or something, or at least 8 years. So that usually provides ample time for countries to, prepare and to have the necessary facilities. Obviously, the United States is a huge country. It has hosted many global events in the past, like I said, the World Cup in '94, but it's hosted the Olympics. I have no doubt that, you'll have a great showing. It'll be a great event for the U.S. and hopefully that there will be some games here in Missouri as well.
So, explain soccer to some. Let's assume you're a simple hillbilly who's seen it on TV. You don't understand ties, and it's just something. Uh, share your passion for soccer with someone so they could maybe grab onto it too.
Right. So soccer is obviously there's a big debate as to you guys have American football here and soccer globally is called football. So that's always kind of a fun thing when between people in the Middle East or Europe and the U.S. and which is football, which is soccer. But soccer is a wonderful game. One of the appeals of soccer, and I grew up playing it in Saudi Arabia for sure, but also in other countries. And maybe one of the appeals of soccer is you don't need to be. Somebody put it best by saying you don't need to be 7 foot tall or 7 foot wide. Any average person can play soccer. You don't need a lot of equipment. All you need is a ball. You don't even need a goalpost. You can I played in the streets and in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, and other places where you just make shift a goal. And again, it's all about skill. It's a finesse game, and there's a reason I think that it's the most popular game in the world. Although, like I said, I love football. I like basketball, and all of these sports are also pretty popular in the kingdom as well.
Um, so before I let you go, specifically Missouri, I through Jim, I've seen a lot of the work you guys have been working on cultivating here in the state. Can you give just our viewers a quick rundown of the projects you're working on specifically here in Missouri?
Right. So I believe that Saudi Arabia is Missouri's 13th biggest export market. I believe last year it was $133 million worth of trade in goods and services. You have a number of companies that are based here in Missouri that have partnerships in Saudi Arabia. I believe one of them is Emerson,
Mhm.
which is built. I believe that they have built a research or a training center in Saudi Arabia. That was, if I'm not mistaken, valued at $25 million. Thing is about Saudi-U.S. trade. and this is according to the US government's own estimates, the level of trade in goods and services on an annual basis, which last year was around $40 billion, supports 165,000 American jobs. That's a lot of jobs. These are a lot of good paying jobs. And so, again, this is just one of the many dimensions of the relationship. Whenever I do speak, whether in DC or outside of the Beltway, I can't stress this enough, to be honest, is that this is a good relationship. It's a good relationship for both Saudi Arabia. It's been good for the United States. It has advanced the national security interests of both countries. It has advanced the economic interests of both countries. There's an important people to people dimension of this relationship that is sometimes overlooked. So as we speak, there's about, I think, approximately 70,000 Americans living and working in Saudi Arabia. There's about 30,000 Saudi students who are currently in the United States. And obviously, many of them are here for their education, but a lot of them are also using this time to give back to their local communities. They're volunteering at hospitals, schools, senior citizen centers. There's a couple of Saudi-run organizations that have actually helped American communities recover from natural disasters. So, this relationship has not endured for as long as it has by accident. There's many compelling reasons that it has, and we look forward to it lasting at least another 80 years.
Well, I'm glad you're in Missouri. Good luck at the Model United Nations. And
Thank you.
again, you got to tell Gwynner, you got to come back during the summer so you can go to a baseball game. St. Louis is just a different town when the Cardinals are in town.
Okay, sounds good to me. I look forward to it, Scott. Thank you.
Appreciate the visit. Thank you.
Thank you.